everyone. Thank you for coming today. I'm Stacy Felby. I plan the adult programs here at the Lake City Public Library. And today we're very excited to have Inga Witscher here with us. She's the host of the PBS series Around the Farm Table. Inga is a fourth-generation dairy farmer, milking cows and making cheese on her small farm in Wisconsin. She is the co-creator and host of the PBS series Around the Farm Table, which is part cooking show and part farming adventure. The series highlights Midwestern farmers. Today's event is an entertaining and educational cooking demonstration where Inga will talk about the benefits of buying local. She will share what's happening on her farm and cook up a delicious fall-inspired recipe. But before we get started, just a few things. I want to just give a little shout out to some of the other events that we have coming up over the next few weeks here at the library. This coming Tuesday, we have an event that is focused on Alzheimer's disease and dementia, and that is a Zoom event, and all of our contact information, login information is out on our website. In a couple of weeks we have Minnesota author Alan Eskins. We also have a cooking demo coming up in October with Margot Yoder, and that is also via Zoom, and the contact information, the Zoom information is out on our website, so you can just click on a link for that. We also have, toward the end of October, we have a book discussion on the art of dying well with two medical professionals. And that is October 28th. Right now that is a little bit in limbo because one of them is a Mayo Clinic employee. And right now she's not sure if Mayo is going to let her do in-person events, but I will keep everybody posted on the status of that event out on our website. We also have monthly craft kits. We've got samples of those up at the front of the library if you want to take a look at those. And then specific information about all of these events, we do have flyers up at the front. It's also located out on our library website. Just also another quick reminder, our drinking fountain and our restrooms are outside the back door of this room. So we just ask that you use that door so you don't disrupt the presentation. So at this time, I'm going to go get Inga and bring her in, and thank you again for coming.
All right, thank you so much. Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. This is so nice being out and about. I hope it's okay that I have my mask up. I'll stay well away from everyone, and I'm fully vaccinated. This is my mother here with me today, Cynthia. She's going to be helping out with some different recipes as we go along. Mom, do you want to take a seat over here while we're waiting?
Sure. I'd love to.
This is the only time I get to tell my mom what to do, so I love very much of doing that. So, well, welcome this morning. My name is Inga Witscher. I'm a fourth-generation dairy farmer. I milk cows and make cheese on my small farm up in Osseo, Wisconsin. I grew up on my family's dairy farm in Washington State. They lived about an hour outside of Washington, or outside of Seattle, where they milked cows on about 80 acres, or 80 cows on how many acres, Mom?
120.
120 acres. So I got to grow up, I was homeschooled, which meant I got to spend all day long, after my school lessons were done, going out and pasturing the cows with my dad, working in the garden with my grandparents, cooking with my mom. It was really, really great. I didn't realize how nice my childhood was until now that I'm an adult. When I was younger, when we would want something like, dinner, we had to go out to the garden, dig potatoes out of the ground, or get the ears of corn off the stalks, and I was just like, oh, my mom would make homemade bread from like wheat, that she'd mill herself, and I just thought like, this is just the worst. I'd go to a friend's house and they had white bread, which I thought they were so lucky. And some of them even had this. I remember going to a friend's house, and her mom took out a box of powdered potatoes and added the mix to hot water and made mashed potatoes, and I just thought like, where have I been living at? Like we have to peel them and mash them and all this stuff. So I didn't realize until I'm older now how great it was to be able to learn all of those skills, from growing a garden to milking cows to really figuring out the pasture, and to have a really wonderful sense of not only myself and my farm, but also the wildlife that surrounds our farm, and taking care of the land. I really got that stewardship from my folks, so I'm really happy. 15 years ago or 16 years ago, something like that, I moved to Wisconsin to start farming. When I was a little girl, I actually wanted to be a hairdresser, but I failed at beauty school. I couldn't do a finger wave, so they kicked me out and I had to come up with a plan B. And I was living, I moved after high school, my family moved to Virginia, where my parents were hired by a family from Switzerland to put together an organic farm. We milked cows there, also made cheese and made bread there. So I got put into the creamery to learn how to make cheese into this creamery. And it was great, I loved it. I loved being able to, you know, make cheese. And then I was kind of waffling around, and my parents had ended up moving to Wisconsin because in the 90s, about 20 of our area farmers in Washington State relocated to Wisconsin to continue farming. They were being pushed out by urban sprawl, high land prices, all kinds of things. So they all kind of migrated into Wisconsin. And then I came later on, and I thought I would stay for maybe a week or two, and now it's been 15 years. How many people grew up on a farm? Okay, good. Get their names in case I need somebody to milk cows for me this next weekend. With the first day I bought cows, so my dad said, you know, you should really think about becoming a dairy farmer. Now that you're kind of wondering what to do with your life. I was 24, and he says, start milking cows. You're going to make so much money milking cows. Don't ever lie to your kids like that, you know. I actually moved up here, moved in the house with my folks, and bought a herd of cows and started milking cows. The first day, I was so scared having these cows on my property that I was in charge of, that I had to deal with. It took me 30 cows, took me 8 hours to milk all 30. I mean, everybody, mostly myself, was just going nuts in the barn and just thinking, what did we get ourselves into here? It was horrible. And then after a couple of days, it just became like that thing that void that I'd been wanting to fill for so long of like, what's missing, what's missing? And it turned out I was meant to be a dairy farmer. So I've been milking cows ever since on my farm. In 2018, we had a horrible fire on our farm. We were putting in a brand new creamery into our existing barn so that we could make cheese right there on the farm. And a few days before it was finished, before we put in all the equipment for the cheese making room, the whole thing burned down. So we had to kind of start fresh. And that was in November of 2018. And then in January and February, we had so much snow in the Osseo area where I live that all of our other buildings fell down. And my cows were just looking at me like, Mom, what is going on around here? This is nuts. So we're finally kind of back up and going slowly. We started making cheese in May of 2020, and we've been going ever since. I'm happy to be back on the farm full time and doing my thing there, and also doing television. We took a little bit of a break because of COVID with filming new episodes. So, and we have our first episode coming out on Thursday, October 7th. So do you all get Wisconsin Public Television down here? Okay, that's what I thought, so we're kind of close. So, and everyone's familiar with the show? Yeah, okay. If you're not, we go around Wisconsin and we find wonderful ingredients. And my dad and I actually came up with the idea a few years ago, about 10 years ago. We were watching these shows. One of them is out of England. It's called The Two Fat Ladies. Best show I've ever seen. Have you seen it? Oh my, it's so good. You can always tell when someone saw it when they're just like kind of giggle to themselves. These two women, they were just fantastic. They've both passed away now, but they would drive around England in a motorcycle and a sidecar. And one of them was just like a chain smoker, and her fingernails were out to here, and she always had like bacon grease underneath, you know. And everything they cooked had bacon in it. And they would just go around, and they'd go around England and pick up all these different ingredients, and then they would cook for a group. And we started thinking about that show and thinking about Wisconsin and all the wonders that we have here in the Midwest with food. And my dad said, you know, we should do a TV show. We should pitch it to PBS. And we'll go and interview these wonderful farmers, and we'll talk about where the ingredients are coming from and the health of the land and these different things. And then we'll put it together into a show, and you'll cook at the end, and you're going to host it. And I was like, all right, well, okay, I'm not doing anything next week, let's do it, like whatever. And then that was 8 years ago. We were actually nominated for a Midwest Emmy last year for one of our shows. So we're so excited to be able to bring the Midwest and all of the wonderful agriculture we have here to the masses. So I think we air in, what, 30 some states, and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And we get a lot of fun feedback from folks in not so, different areas of the United States where they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing that's happening here. We had one show airing and there was snow all over the ground, and they said, oh, it's so nice to see what it looks like in January in Wisconsin. We'd actually filmed the show in April, but we still had 4 feet of snow. So it does look like that in January too sometimes though. But anyway, I wanted to share with you one of my new favorite recipes that I've been making all for the last month as tomato season is really in full swing. It's a tomato and cheddar galette. So a galette is like a free-formed pie. It's like we're gonna make the pie crust, and then it's kind of the looser, more relaxed cousin of like a quiche or a tart. And if you guys have any questions as we're moving forward, just let me know. I've been stuck at home, not seeing people for so long. I'm so excited to see people, and I might just talk like this. My husband's not here to say, oh, not again. I've heard that story. Okay, so we're gonna make the pie crust first. And pie crust seems to be something that a lot of people in my generation are like, why would you even make pie crust? You can just buy it, or it's really difficult. And I feel like my grandmother is just standing behind me, her like spirit is standing behind me with this, just like wanting to like smash her hands and say, you make your own pie crust, it's so easy. And it really is the easiest thing. The key to making great pie crust and that flaky pie crust is making sure all your ingredients are really, really cold. So before I usually start when I'm at home, I measure out my ingredients for the crust. So here we have 2 cups of all-purpose flour and then a stick and a half of butter. And if you don't like cooking with butter, you're watching the wrong program. I love butter. I think everybody should be cooking with butter all the time. And then a little water and a little apple cider vinegar. So before I get started with this, I'm gonna...
And you would have that in the freezer?
Well, I would cut this up into small pieces, and then I would put this into the freezer. So that way everything is staying really, really cold. And the reason you want it really, really cold is so that when you're baking your crust, the butter it'll kind of layer when it's cooking. So and that's what makes it really flaky. So let me just dice this. So it's a stick and a half of butter. And I always use unsalted butter when I'm cooking because I want to be able to add in the salt that I want to add in. And also, when we were taking a dairy class, we realized that salted butter can be kept for years. So if there's a surplus of, a lot of times like in the spring and fall, there's a flush of cream in cows, and then the creameries can take that cream, freeze it, and then make butter with it, and then freeze it for years. So with the sweet cream butter you're getting in the store, it's a lot fresher than the salted butter. And then you can add your own salt to it, so it's just better all around. So imagine all of this has been in the freezer. So I'm going to take my 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and then my butter right here. I'll break it up. Oops. And I always wear an apron so you can wipe all your hands off. I'm realizing I wear aprons all the time. I love aprons, and I mean I use it for bringing things in from the garden, for my dish towel, for smoothing out my silhouette so I look less chubby sometimes. It comes in handy for a lot of different things. So I'm going to take my pastry brush. This is one of these crusts that I used to love using my Cuisinart for making crust, but now I'm liking to do it home or by hand because then I can kind of be more in control of it, and it seems to mix up a little bit nicer. And also I feel like I'm channeling, my great-grandmother making pastry in the kitchen all those years ago. So I'm going to mix in my butter until it's nice and, what do they always say, like oatmeal? Is it cornmeal? Mix it in here. And butter is one of those things that's really fun to make at home. If you got your grandkids over, you can buy some heavy cream and then put it in a mason jar and then let them shake it like crazy. It takes a lot of effort and quite a bit of time, but it's nice. They'll be so tired out by the end of it that you can have a break. I do it with my nephews all the time, just so I can get a little bit of a break. And it's just so fun to see how all of a sudden the cream will become butter. Like you think like it's like, oh, I'm gonna give up on this, I'm gonna give up, it's never gonna turn into butter. And then it turns into butter and it's just the most exciting thing. And then you have real buttermilk as well, so you can use that to make pancakes or a cake. And it's so much different than just putting some vinegar in milk to make buttermilk. Oops. Mother. Always bring your mom with you to cooking demonstrations, that's the key. All right. So I'm just gonna do one more with my hands. Also, just as fun, it feels really good. Just to play, you know, it feels like being a kid again, just being able to play. So the secret ingredient I'm gonna add is my apple cider vinegar. What the vinegar does anybody ever add vodka to their, yeah, all right. I'm not gonna waste my vodka on pie crust. But so by adding alcohol or vinegar, it helps kind of slow down the gluten formation in the dough. So it'll make it less sort of chewy and a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know.
Crisp.
Yeah, there you go. You're coming with me from now on. Mom, you were tight. Just
Thank you for changing.
So I'm going to add about 1 tablespoon of the vinegar. And if you've seen our show, you know I never measure anything. And it drives my mom absolutely nuts. So I keep doing it. Just because it's really fun to drive her nuts sometimes. We get to work a lot together. Our show is really the 3 of us, my mom and my dad and I, and then we have our crew from Wisconsin Public Television, but it's really fun. Do you guys ever watch The Cook's Kitchen or Christopher Kimball? We got to meet him a few years ago, and someone asked him, how many people do you have on staff to help you, like with the recipe testing and getting, you know, for filming? And he says, oh, I'm like 28, I think. And then they asked me, and I was like, her. that's who I am. Which, I mean, to be honest, she does do the work of like 28 people, so that's why I like, have to have one. But so when we get ready to film, it's just, my mom and my dad and I, like, we'll redo the whole kitchen area in our house, or in my house now, and then my mom's behind the scenes cooking extra, you know, whatever we're making to show on TV, feeding the crew, you know, dealing with everything. So it's really fun that we get to work together. They tell me I'm the easiest person to work with, so that's really nice for them. They have no complaints.
She makes these stories up.
So I'm going to add a little bit of water. Mom, can you give me just a little bit more water?
Sure.
So a little bit of water at a time. And with the crust, you never want to use too much water. You can just give me a spoon. All right. So the water can be, it's the life and the death of crust. You don't want to use too much water because it can really just make it gummy. So that's why I like to add it in the bowl. And I'm just doing a little bit.
How about the temper of the day? All you cooks out there. We came from Seattle. We have one straight temperature, wet, muggy, it's just wet. And I never had any idea about the temper of the day until we moved to Virginia, where it's cold or so humid, and here it's the same thing. And so I've been here like 18 years, and I'm just now getting the temper of the day.
So tell them what the temper of the day is.
I was going to have them, they lived here with me.
So depending on the moisture in the air, the flour that you're using, how old that flour is going to depend on how much water you need. So that's where you really just have to pay attention, add a little bit at a time, until you get the dough to really just come together.
So okay ladies, what is it, gents? Those cooks out here? So if it's really wet outside and you don't have your air conditioner on, your flour is going to be a little wetter, I mean just mixing in the kitchen, so you wouldn't add as much water, right? And in the wintertime, it's so dry here, you just have to add so much. Yeah, it's totally different. Like, you know, my cousins, my relatives will come out from Seattle and we'll cook and they're going, what's wrong? What's happening here? Because we just have one straight wet climate out there.
Well, it's because they don't know what the sunshine looks like either. That's what I'm like, what's going on? I remember when we first moved from Washington State, I mean, it's like really depressing and cloudy all the time there. And so when we moved, it was like, we moved to Virginia and it was sunny for like 5 days in a row. And I just kept thinking, I thought the world was seriously going to end. I was like, what's going on? Like, why is it so bright out? It was so weird. So once this dough comes together, and it's just come together. I'm not gonna overwork it too much. Then you can put this in your refrigerator, wrap it up in plastic, put it in your refrigerator for about 2 hours. And then again, that's gonna allow that butter to set back up and to get a little bit cold. So we're gonna imagine that that's going in the fridge. And then I'm gonna get my tomatoes ready. So it's a tomato and, yes?
I have one question. My family always swore by using lard.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to say my family always swore, and I was going to say, so does mine. No, lard is like so amazing. So as the season approaches for everyone baking pies and things like that, if you can find leaf lard from a local butcher shop, the leaf lard is the fat around the, I believe it's the liver of the hogs, and that is like the purest lard you can find. But the thing is, you need to know how the pig was raised, you know. And in the old days, it's like you knew how the pig was raised.
You had it on your property. You raised your own pigs.
Right. And now it's like as if what we always talk about is like what you are, what you eat eats, right? So it's like if I'm using lard, I really need to know the pig's name that it came from, their grandparents, you know, their aunts and uncles, and whatever they're eating, because it just really makes a difference. But with that leaf lard, it is the best fat to use. Like, it really is. And it's easy to get if you ever come across a farmer that raises hogs, and they, you can render your own lard. And it's really easy to do. You can just put it in the crock pot, and then turn it on low, and all the fat the lard will fall to the bottom, and then you'll get these little crispy pieces of meat that come to the top, and it's like the best treat ever. It's worth rendering your own lard just to have like a little bit of that treat. So if you know a farmer, and do you guys have a farmer's market down here, right? Yeah? Okay, good. Yeah, so it's always nice. You know, when you get to know those farmers, it's so important because, like, what do I tell people for us? When people are spending money on a farm like ours in a rural area, if they're helping support us by buying cheese or anything like that, we're taking that money and it's going right back into our rural community. So we spend about, I'd say like $20,000 a year on buying feed in for the cows. So we cannot produce all of our own hay in our land because we have a limited amount of land. So I buy directly from a neighbor that is 1 mile away from me. So that money is going right 1 mile back down the road. So it's not going to Amazon and things like that, right? So it's not going, the guy down the road is not buying a yacht or like flying to space with the money I'm paying him. He's then putting it right back into parts and all these insurance and all the stuff back in the local communities. So when we support our farmers at the farmers market, we're really supporting our rural economies as well. And it's super important to do. All right, so I'm going to cut up some tomatoes and get them sweating. So these are just some of my last tomatoes I just grabbed off of my vines today. I did not realize it was going to be so cold overnight. We got a little bit of a frost up there where I live at, and it was a little chilly milking this morning. Okay, so once I have my tomatoes sliced up here, let me do one more. Then, just like when you do like an eggplant or zucchini or anything like that, you want to add salt and let that sweat. And what that means is it's just going to bring out all that extra moisture from those vegetables, and tomatoes are fruits. So then it'll be less soggy as they cook. And this is a good thing to do if you're making BLTs or anything. It's just kind of getting that moisture out of the tomato, so it's a lot cleaner when you're. I just had a tomato sandwich the other day. I've been trying to eat as many tomatoes as I can before the season is done, you know, so I want to be so sick of tomatoes by the time that winter is here that I won't want to see another one until August of 2022, right? That's how the way it should be. And I'm eating these tomatoes the other day on a piece of bread, and it's just like the front of my shirt is just like stained with tomato water and juice, and then someone pulled in and I'm like walking out like, hi, you know, I have to have a bib now when I'm eating my tomato sandwiches. Do you have the, did you bring paper towels?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm going to take that because I get to...
You take that away, and then I'm going to roll out some of this crust here.
Yeah, we were listening to Christopher Kimball. He's on Milk Street now. Anybody listen to him?
Mom, you have to pretend like it's our original idea.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
10 minutes. So you taste your tomatoes. Take a bite. Now salt your tomatoes. Wait 10 minutes, and you'll notice a huge difference in flavor. Just waiting that 10 minutes. And if you can wait 20, that's even better. But to salt your tomatoes ahead of time is just...
It's just like one of those fun little tricks that's just like good to know. Can you get my egg wash going for me, Mother?
Oh, that's good.
That's for you.
And this.
All right. So I've just got my parchment down here. And then I'll take that crust again. This has been in the fridge, right, for 2 hours. We're using our imaginations. And then I'm going to put it right down on my parchment paper.
You can talk about eggs. How many of you get eggs fresh from a farmer?
Well, you can, so see the yolks here, like that really beautiful color. Can you guys all see that? That really rich color. So that's because our chickens are grazing on grass. So we move our chickens, they're in a little chicken coop housing area so they can be protected from the wildlife and everything. And then we move them every day or every other day so that they can eat the grass. And they really eat grass. I mean, it's amazing to see how they forage through. They'll eat the grass, they eat all of the worms and the bugs coming up from the grass. And that's what gives the eggs that amazing color. If you're buying in the store, like there's all these different food labeling, right? And it's so confusing. So if you buy eggs from a company and they say the chickens are, they're pasture chickens, that means legally that the whole coop, could be like 5,000 birds, has this much space to go outside. So that's another reason why it's so important to buy locally and know where your food's coming from, because you can ask those farmers, you can look on their social media pages and see how those animals are going around, and these eggs are going to be so much healthier. I think now that I'm entering sort of my next phase of life, I'm really thinking more about the health of my body and what I'm putting into it. And so one thing we do on the farm is like we're always building the soil of our farm. We're building that through composting, cover cropping, all these different things, because we can't have healthy people without healthy food. And we cannot have healthy food without healthy soil. So by having healthy soils, by having the chickens out on the ground or the cows out eating the grass, we're mining all those different minerals and vitamins from that soil, and they're going right into our bodies. So that's really something that we think is important for us. I mean, we still have a martini every night. That's part of being healthy too, right? So I'm just going to roll out my crust here. And so again, it's kind of like I'm making a pie, but I don't have to have the pie shell. So the galette is really just a nice and easy, relaxed recipe. And you can use, this is going to be a savory galette. You can also quite easily just do a sweet galette. And what I would do is just add a little pinch of sugar to your crust if you wanted to do that. This apple season down here, so this would be a great crust to use and do an apple galette. And just slice those apples thin with some sugar and cinnamon.
I have a question. If you guys were to do that, when you put on a simple apples, would you cook your apples first or just slice them real thin?
No, this is going to bake for 1 hour. I wouldn't either, yeah.
I was just checking.
Okay, so my crust is out.
And the other night we had she wouldn't move out of our house, so my husband and I had to move in, away. We moved into Eau Claire.
I'm a fun roommate.
And so we needed to downsize for our second move, and so we moved into this really great 1900 apartment. A mansion turned into an apartment. Now we have the porch ladies cleaning up the porch. So the other night I had a dinner for everybody, and so one woman, she was at the St. Paul Hotel. She was in charge catering and all the food at the St. Paul Hotel. So she is, and I'm kind of neurotic, and so
kind of.
Okay, so I'm going to bring this. What kind of pan you putting it in? What kind of pan? Okay, well, we can't have the same pans. So I had to bring the focaccia in a round pan. She took my square platter and put her salad on, and then the dessert was in a rectangle. So we covered all the things so it could fit on the table. That's being a little intense.
So anyway, so this is a cheddar. I forgot my grater, so I'm going to use yours. You're going to have to wipe it
Okay,
up.
well, so you use there and I'll use there.
Okay, so I like to use cheddar because that's what I make on my farm. So we are a farmstead dairy, which means we milk the cows and make the cheese all there on the farm. And I'm really proud of the fact that I milk the cows 99.9% of the time, and then when I can't, my husband will fill in for me. And then that I get to make every wheel of cheese that we make. And it's the most amazing thing to be able to go out and collect the cows from pasture. And they kind of wake up and they kind of do this like yoga moves as they're waking up and like kind of getting ready. And then we walk in the field together and they'll stop and kind of chew and eat here and there and sneak some, feed, whatever. And then we come in and then I get to milk them. And I downsized from 40 cows down to 6 cows back in 2018 when I decided to make cheese. And so I have this huge bond with these 6 animals that I really love them. Like they're just really sweet. I don't have any kids, so like they are my kids. I'm glad I didn't think of birth to them because they're huge, but they're wonderful animals. So I get to milk them, and then what we do at the farm is I milk into buckets, like an old-fashioned bucket milking system. So then I pick up that milk every day, or after every cow, and I pour it gently into our bulk tank so that it can cool down to around 37, 38 degrees. And by doing that, the fats in the milk can stay together. I milk Jersey cows, which are those beautiful deer-like cows, and their butter fat is so much. It is so incredible. It's like having cream come out of these cows. It's just so much. So I want to keep all the fats in the milk whole and treat them well. So I instead of pumping the milk through the barn, I just carry it by hand. And by doing that, it gives it a richer flavor to our cheese. And then twice a week, my dad will come out and meet me. He'll be in the creamery. I'll send the milk over through a small pipe into the vat. And then I go and get cleaned up, and then my dad and I get to make the cheese together. My mom will come out and help, and sometimes my husband's there to help. And it's just, it's amazing then as the process of the cheese making begins. We only do the one cheese. We do a cloth-bound British-style cheddar. So it's the same process every time we make cheese, but the milk is also like a little bit different each time because of the season, because of the cow's lactation, where they're at in their lactation, because of the weather. So as I'm like cooking down the curds and it's separating from the whey and all these different things are happening, it's just so exciting to be a part of that process from the very beginning of bringing the cows in until putting that cheese away for 1 year to age. It's really great. So this is a piece that we brought down. We made this on August 28th of 2020. And you'll notice the color of this is a lot darker, just like the eggs were, and that's because of the cows eating pasture. So our cows, I move them from different pasture every 12 hours. So they're constantly being moved around the farm. So they're eating a diverse diet of clovers and natural native grasses and different things like that. They're also spreading their own manure for me, so I don't have to do haul manure every day. And what's happening too is there's certain species of birds that can only nest on the ground. And when we used to have a lot of small dairy farms, family farms, where they would have their cows out on grass, we had plenty of space for these birds to nest, and all these different insects, and all the different wildlife. And now that as we see that disappearing, we're seeing the numbers of birds disappearing. We're seeing our insects disappearing. We're seeing a lot of our pollinators disappearing. And somebody might say, well, what's the big deal? Who cares? Well, as we're seeing all these species disappearing, this is us. So with all of them disappearing, then we disappear as well. But also, we have to share with the wildlife and the birds and everything, and it's wonderful. So by having the cows eating pasture, if I was going through with a tractor harvesting their feed, I couldn't see the nests in the ground. But the cows know exactly where the nests are. So as they're grazing, they'll say, oh, okay, I'm bobolink over there. Okay, I'm gonna, move in and around, and then they're being a lot gentler on the earth. And then it's giving that cheese this beautiful color because they can't digest the beta carotene. Yes?
Well, what happens in winter time?
What happens
with your cows? Do you keep them inside then, or?
No, we don't. They actually prefer to stay out. So we have an area inside of our, his question was, what do we do with the cows in the wintertime? We bale hay. We only feed baled hay on the farm instead of silage. So we get all of our hay from our neighbor. We bale about 10 acres on our farm. And then we have an area inside the barn that's a nice covered area that the cows have access to all winter long if they want to go in and get out of the, if it's like a really windy, blizzardy day, they'll go in there. But on days when it's 30 below, they're outside. They have no problem being outside. I put some straw bales and things out and keep them like really dry and clean so that they can bed down in there. And it's amazing that they're just like, nah, forget it, it's sunny, I'll be outside. And they grow, they're starting now to like really get their fur for the winter time. And they look like fancy ladies walking down Fifth Avenue with their like big fur coats in the wintertime. They're just like, look at me, I'm so fancy. And they become so much bigger just because of like how much fur they put on. And I've had no problem with them being outside. And what we do in the wintertime, we call it Bale Grazing. So I'm probably nerding way out on farming, but I'm really into this now. Is I'll put a bale of hay in a specific spot in the field where I need extra nutrients and I need their foot to be digging up that dirt. And then in the springtime, so I'll feed them here today, and then I'll put a bale over here because I need some manure over here. And so I can strategically place where my manure is going all winter long. And then in the springtime, the extra hay that was left there will compost back into the soil, and I can hand seed in some different clovers and things like that to bring more nitrogen into the soil and kind of do things we do things like on a very small scale. But so that's my really long answer to the cows prefer to just stay outside. And it's nice because then we're not cleaning the barn constantly. That's never a fun job. So. So for the base layer here, it's just going to be some beautiful cheddar. You could also use mozzarella, Asiago. Hard cheeses really work well with this recipe, but anything you have on hand. And lucky for you guys, we did bring some of our cheese down today, so if you want to try it with our cheddar, we'll have that opportunity today. So I'm going to grind it as best I can here. I always forget, it's been a while since we've done demonstrations. I always forget at least one thing on the counter, you know, when I'm leaving the house. And then I come home like, there you are. Hope you had a fun day, grater, you know, or whatever I left behind. But it makes life fun. Mom, there's your grater back.
Thank you.
And then we're going to take our claws here, and then I'm just going to dab off those tomatoes. And so it's going to be less, thank you, Mother. It's going to be less wet as it cooks, so that's nice and dry. You can help me, Mom.
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Do that.
So we milk cows about 9 months out of the year. Cows will need to have 2 months off. So their last 2 months of their gestation, they take a break. So if we can time it correctly, we can have all the cows pregnant at the same time, so they all get 2 months off at the same time, which means we get 2 months off at the same time. So I just bred a few cows last week, and I have one to come into heat hopefully this week. So fingers crossed that they're all going to be pregnant when I get them tested, so that we can all take some time off. I was telling my dad the other day, I said, you know, Dad, I've milked every day for over 365 days. He's like, I did it with 8 years once without a break. I'm like, oh. Did you have a question?
Oh, do you breed your own cows?
I don't breed my own cows. I used to for a while when I was milking about 40, 50 cows, because you have to have the practice of having your arm in constantly, because you go in with your, this might get graphic, you go in with your left arm, you know, and then you have to kind of move the ovaries a little bit, and then you can go in and breed them that way. And since I don't have the practice of doing it every day, I just thought, oh, I'm just going to hire somebody to come do it because it's so much easier. And then you have to keep your nitrogen in your tank and all that kind of stuff. But I can do it. In a pinch, I can do it. But I remember when I did breed my own cows, it was pretty fun when they would be pregnant. I mean, I was just like, oh, I feel like a proud father right now, you know? Yeah. All right. Do I have a little garlic with me, Mom?
Yes,
I had some right here. Okay, so now I'm just gonna, so really simple, and this is kind of one of these recipes. I like to cook recipes, I like to give people like a basic understanding of these recipes, and then fill it with whatever's in your fridge, clean out your garden this weekend and make this tart or this Galette, but put whatever you'd like from your garden in or your farmer's market. I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic.
And garlic from the farm.
This is garlic we grow on the farm. Does anybody grow garlic in their garden? Easiest thing, isn't it? It's the easiest thing to grow, the best thing to grow. If you're interested, find your garlic from the farmer's market. A lot of the garlic that we have in the United States gets shipped in from China, and they can use different fumigators and different things like that. So I always like to buy, if you're going to be planting your garlic, buy it from a farmer that you know. And then you just plant it with the tip up, the root down, about twice the depth of, or twice down, whatever that thing is. Plant it in October, then you harvest it in July. It's the easiest thing. And what it also does, I do a lot of companion planting on my farm. So I'll plant my garlic where, like around my lettuces and different things, because the smell of the garlic will keep deer away, it'll keep certain bugs away. So you can strategically plant your garlic in your garden where you need extra help with your tomatoes. A lot of times when I'm thinking about what to grow together, it's if it goes together, it grows together. That's the rule. If it goes together, it grows together. If you grow your basil and tomatoes next to each other, they help each other out. They give off different scents and different things that'll keep the aphids off the tomatoes and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they just offer in the soil a companion for each other. So if it goes together on a plate, grow it together in your garden. I just need one, Mom.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm not going to cook this.
All right.
She's so judgy.
No, I'm not. It's.
So I'm going to go ahead and again season my tomatoes. And if I was going to make this for supper tonight, I've got so much kale in my garden, I'd probably saute down some kale, add that to it. What else do I have? I think that's kind of it that I need to get rid of right now. And some more tomatoes. So use this as like your basis for building blocks. And then to put it together, you're just going to take your sides and crimp, just kind of stack your dough on top of each other as it goes around. So it's very not fussy.
And who can smell the garlic? Wonderful. I have a story which she's been growing garlic for a long time.
No, it's because of the enzymes in the garlic. That's why it turned purple.
The enzymes in the
garlic?
garlic?
I was reading about it the other day.
No, it turned blue.
Okay.
It turned bright blue. Like,
no,
as blue as that painting. I bought some, we ran out of the garlic. It was like April. We didn't have any garlic left, so I ran to the store and got a big one because we went through a lot of garlic, like at Sam's. And I came home and I'm making lemon spaghetti, and I chopped the garlic and I got everything ready and I put it in there, and then I added the lemon juice, and the pan turned that blue. That blue, and it never has turned blue before, but it did burn off. But of course everybody saw it. 8 people in the kitchen helping. Everybody saw the blue, and I think it was just because we bought it from a big bag instead of having our own. So now after you do the egg wash on the tart, or the galette, you can put that back in the freezer for 10 minutes and then start sorry, I've been up since 3. Preheating. Start preheating the oven to 400. And then after you let this sit for 10 minutes and your oven's preheated, pop it in for 55 to 60 minutes. It takes a while. And then you're going to get a finished product that looks like this. So I used yellow tomatoes, so that's why it's like a lighter color. But isn't that kind of a fun dish to just, kind of rustic? It reminds me of like a rustic Italian sort of drinking wine under the Tuscan sun. It's really good too. I was absolutely happily surprised when she let us eat the first one. And then you can just pop some fresh basil or some chives or whatever you have on hand to make it pretty. And then there's your galette. So that's fun for like a nice little lunch or even like a little hors d'oeuvre at a book club or anything like that. So the next thing my mom's going to make for us very quickly is one of our favorite summertime drinks, besides martinis. This is one, back in the 1800s, everybody made this drink. It's called Switchel or Haymaker's Punch.
So this was like the original Gatorade. This is back in the days when water wasn't safe to drink and all the farmhands just drank booze all day long. They had to figure out something to give them that was healthy, and so they wouldn't just be drunk putting up hay, right? So they started making this switchel or Haymaker's punch, and what it is, it's apple cider vinegar, it's molasses.
And apple cider vinegar, why do we use this kind of apple cider vinegar?
Because it has the mother in it, which is a probiotic. So with the apple cider vinegar in this drink, it'll give you some extra electrolytes. So it's apple cider vinegar, molasses or honey, and then ginger. And so they used to give this to the farm workers because they thought the apple cider vinegar, they had a ton of apple cider vinegar because everybody had apple trees, Johnny Appleseed, you know, the whole thing. So they had the apple cider vinegar, and they thought, well, that kind of will satisfy the workers of that sort of whiskey taste, right, or that hard bite in the drink. So they started using that, and there was a lot less drunk farmers.
And then also in present day, we used to, I mean, who would, my mother-in-law gave everybody 7-Up or Coke. And how long can you drink 7-Up or Coke?
Like if you're sick?
No, if you're thirsty, you're haying, you're sweating, you're working, you know, that was a lot of work. And everybody was about, you know, just, no, I can't do another one, but I'm so thirsty, what can I do? And this would have filled that need ever so beautifully.
Well, it's just a great quencher, so it's a great thing to have in the fridge on hotter days or different things like that. But I'm going to start adding this for you, Mom, because we're kind of running out of time here.
Who wants us to keep going? No, I'm kidding. Okay, so you notice how I took the ginger root, and it's just, in the recipe it calls for making a gallon. We have a few recipe cards. It calls for a gallon, so here I used my spoon. How many of you do that, use spoons to peel your ginger? She's showing me, I'm getting better at it. So I'm just going to grate the ginger. How many of you eat your own ginger? I mean, eat ginger tea, ginger, anything? Okay, good. How many use ginger for medicinal reasons, purposes? I love ginger. You do too? Anybody know that you can use ginger as a compress to help with swelling? Very good. Now, the recipe will call for making a gallon. We're only doing 1/4 of a cup of either molasses or honey. I personally don't like honey. It just doesn't taste right for me. So I use molasses when I'm doing it. She always uses honey.
She's so high maintenance.
So what do you have on your farm?
It's equal parts the sweetener, which honey or molasses, and equal parts apple cider vinegar. And then you can thin it out with your water. And depending on your taste, you can add more water, add more honey.
And somebody the other day, she put rose hips in. And she let that steep while she was waiting to stir. You know, this is one of those recipes you just like the Galette, you just have your own fun.
The rose hips you probably added for vitamin C.
Just in color.
Yeah.
And just for differences of the taste. So I like to tell you about ginger root, steeping it and using it for a swollen ankle, swollen knee, hurt back. If you get really fresh ginger, you can grate a cup on your big box grater. You put a pan of water, 2-quart pan of water to boil. You take it off the stove, set it down, let it soak for about 20 minutes. While that's soaking and making tea, you've got the ice bag right here, or here, or here. And 20 minutes later, I like to do it in the bathtub. I've got my bath water all hot, and you pour just 1 cup, if it's a fresh ginger root. A friend of mine, a soccer woman, she did, well, if one's good, Americans, two's better. You know, that's what we think. She had a fresh ginger root, and she put 2 cups. And she poured that into the bath water and got in. What ginger does, it's a vasodilator. So 2 cups of fresh ginger, her blood vessels dilated. And lucky for her, yeah, she knows what happened. Her husband came home and she was going under. She had no ability. She had no blood, her blood pressure was probably 70. So, you know, don't be, you know, be smart when you use it. On an ankle and a knee, it's the greatest. So you are in the bathtub, I love experiments, and you can notice a difference. When you get in the tub, okay, and then you pour in the ginger with a colander, strain it, it makes a heck of a mess if you don't. And then you can just feel your blood vessels dilating. because it really works. Then you get out of the 20 minutes in the tub, you get out, you put ice on your back for 20 minutes to shrink it. Ice shrinks, ginger root will dilate the blood vessels so lactic acid moves out of the painful area. And you get out and then you put ice back on it and it'll shrink so the lactic acid can't get back in. And that's just, you know, you can't, you know, we're not doctors or anything like that, but it really works. I'm a nurse and all my nurses were doing it. You know, I had them doing it at home. And one guy, one time a husband called, hey look, I really hurt my back. I've got to get the ginger. I really need a bath tonight. So, I mean, it really works.
Well, anyway, so this concludes our cooking portion of the demonstration. Does anybody have, Mark, can you stop doing that? Do it right when I start talking again. Does anybody have any questions for us? Well, good. Well, feel free to come on up and take a look at the Galette. We have some cheese that we brought for sale if you guys are interested. And come up and feel free to ask us any questions. I think my mom will give you some taste of this.
A sample of this, and we can open up some cheese for sale.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for coming.